Joining me now is the Nationals Deputy Leader Perin Davey. She joins me from Canberra. Good to talk to you, Perin. First up, I want to ask you about this energy situation with AEMO, the energy market operator, laying out a roadmap today to get to net zero effectively. As you'd expect, bucket loads more renewable energy and transmission to connect it to everyone. 9 times more solar farms and wind farms. How are we going to pay for all of this? But more importantly, how are we going to have secure, reliable energy if dispatchable power is going backwards?
Well, and let's be clear, a lot of this roadmap isn't a new roadmap. It's not new at all. I mean, they've identified 5 projects which they want to fast track, but these are projects that have been in the pipeline for a long time. So this is not a new government, a new way forward. This is the way forward that we were already preparing for, but taking time to get it right. Because the important thing, a lot of these transmission line projects that they're talking about, you haven't got the community on board. Take the HumeLink, for example, which will connect Snowy 2.0. There's great concern amongst the farmers and even the national park proponents around Snowy and Kosciuszko, worried about where these transmission lines are going, how much of an easement they're going to require. They're talking about overhead power lines instead of underground power lines, and there's great concern. So the way forward is not easy, and we were trying to manage that. But you're absolutely right, Chris, because this roadmap is all about connecting renewables and storage capacity to the grid. But the problem is that's not reliable power. That is still intermittent power. I don't care how big your battery is. At this stage, the technology is not there for a battery big enough to keep our lights on overnight. We still need dispatchable baseload power.
Yeah, well, this plan shows that a lot of the dispatchable power is going to go. We're going to have a lot less as a percentage of our power, a lot less dispatchable power. I want to show you and our viewers this question and answer with the CEO of the Australian Energy Market Operator, that is Daniel Westerman. Have a listen carefully to the question and how he doesn't answer it.
Are you confident that this plan, transition out of coal, this will keep the lights on in Australia into the decades of the future?
What this plan outlines is a 30-year roadmap of investment in the national electricity market to ensure that Australian homes and businesses have access to the most affordable and reliable energy. And we know that that is firmed renewables with transmission.
Well, there we go, Perin. I mean, this is just platitudes from him, the same old green dream, but doesn't answer the crucial question, will the lights stay on?
The biggest problem, he used the term firmed renewables. Now, that is semantics at best. Firmed means having a dispatchable power source to back up renewables when they go offline. That's what we're not talking about. How do we make sure we've got that dispatchable, that firming commitment and capacity when the wind doesn't blow or the sun doesn't shine or the batteries run out of juice? Because at the moment, even South Australia's massive Tesla battery that Elon Musk put in for them, apparently that will only last half an hour if all other sources of power go down. That is not enough to keep the lights on overnight.
I think you'll find that's not even the case. It would run the state of South Australia for less than 3 minutes, that battery. So it gives you an idea of what cost and what the technological hurdles are here. You need at least gas-fired generation to back up those wind and solar plants. I want to move on to another issue and talk about the former leader of the Nationals in New South Wales, the former Deputy Premier John Barilaro. Do you believe it's appropriate, given everything we've learned about how that job as a Trade Commissioner for New South Wales in New York came about, how he effectively set it up and the means of appointment for it? Do you think it's acceptable for him to be the first person to take the job under those terms?
Well, I think it's really unfortunate that there have been questions about the process, and this is where I do think those questions need to be answered first. I have no problem with politicians with relevant experience getting appointments to jobs, but I do worry about the fact that someone was appointed to the role and then verbally appointed, and then the offer was rescinded with no real explanation, and then all of a sudden, lo and behold, newly retired Mr Barilaro was appointed. So I think that this process of the inquiry is a good inquiry to have, and I think those answers need to be followed through. I think the New South Wales
Let me just jump in. We need to have that process, there's no doubt about that, but I want to ask something more fundamental, and that is whether John Barilaro should just rule himself out of this job straight away. Let me show you what the current Transport Minister for New South Wales, his former Cabinet colleague, a Liberal MP, of course, David Elliott, said earlier today.
When you become the story over an appointment, well then the appointment might be not in the best interest of the people of New South Wales. My very, very strong view is that he shouldn't be going to New York, and I'm pretty sure that that's the view of the majority of people in this state.
He's right, isn't he, Perin Davey? John Barilaro should rule himself out.
Look, and I've been in the situation myself where I was very close to being appointed to a government role, preceding politics, and I became the story and I ruled myself out. I stepped aside, and I think that anyone who really believes that they're in it for the best interests of, in this case, the state of New South Wales, I do think, and I think Peter Credlin used to say it brilliantly, that when the staff become the story, there's a problem, and I think this is one of those instances.
So just clearly then, you think John Barilaro should rule himself out. Will you communicate that to him directly?
I'm sure he's watching, so he's probably already heard my opinion, but I would be more than happy to actually pass that on to him as well, and just I'm sure that he's already considering his options, though, given what has come out in the inquiry, and just whether it was a real motivation or whether this is perceptions. The reality is the perception is there that due process was not necessarily followed in this case.
Senator, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.